Ivette, and today I'm going to be arguing that abortion is murder. To start off, I'll be talking about pro-choice individuals. Many pro-choice individuals argue that women should have the right to have an abortion at any time during their pregnancy because it is their body. However, I'm arguing that the child inside them is not their body. Babies are being killed as they live in the safest place for them, and it is being accepted due to the power that they lack. Pregnancies typically last 38 to 40 weeks, and most abortions take before the 24 weeks period. According to the New York Reproductive Health Act, women are able to have an abortion even after the 24 weeks and up until birth. If it is, however, to protect the patient's life, physical, or mental health. The problem with this is that the risk is not identified. There's no definition as to what is a risk to their health, and this includes mental health, physical health, so where can we draw the line? Would stress be considered a health risk? Would that be a convincing enough motive to have an abortion? Many pro-choicers like to argue that late-term abortions must be an option because it might be necessary to save a woman's life. However, an interview with former abortionist Anthony Lipitino states that he's never had to perform an abortion in order to save a woman's life. And on the contrary, he argues that, or he mentions that within the many abortions that he's performed, none of them were ever due to the risk in the mother's health. Instead, he says that the safest thing to do is deliver the baby, because when you have an abortion, you need to prepare the cervix at least 2 to 3 days, and when the mother's life is on the line, that takes too much time, and the safest thing is to just deliver the baby. More than half of premature babies born within 23 to 24 weeks survive and live. But late-term abortions are robbing a child's chance of life, and that is murder and nothing less.
Well, the proposition is sort of a definitional question. There are also some value arguments there, but I can see how it would fit into an issue of fact. There's controversy over what defines murder and whether or not, the dispute really here is about the rights that are involved, like you mentioned, between the unborn child that is a human being and the mother that apparently has a right to control and make decisions about their body and their health. And so it's the conflict over those things that I think where most of this argument is such a flashpoint. So I think maybe you need to focus a little bit more on that to make clear that it is an issue of fact that you were focusing on rather than the value-based issues. I like some of the information that you have that you need to give us a source citation on. For instance, the notion that half of the babies born after the 24th week or the 26th week end up surviving, that seems to suggest that those late-term abortions are potentially unnecessary, that they could deliver the children. There's not really an organizational structure. There's no preview at the beginning of the speech. In the body of the speech, I can kind of follow the examples that you're talking about, but I don't know why they're being presented in that particular order. It's not building very much to a conclusion, and I think that's problematic. The idea that there's a risk, and where do we draw the risk, or where do we draw the line, what counts as a risk, I think that's a specific criticism of the New York law, and if you're going to argue about that, then you need to make that one of the supporting points of your speech and tell us what the problems with that law are. it just feels like it's randomly dropped in here, and it's not necessarily a key component to your general argument about abortion being murder. It's rather just a random piece of information that somebody who's opposed to abortion would use to talk about why this is a bad thing, as opposed to fulfilling the requirement of your definitional criteria. Like I said, there was some factual data that you had. The testimony from the former abortionist suggesting that there isn't really a need for abortion for the safety of a mother's life, I think that's good data that needs to be included in the argument with a claim that suggests that abortion is unnecessary to save the life of a woman, that is largely a myth, or that it is a justification that's being used to cover other motivations for abortion that have nothing to do with the health of the woman. That, I think, is a good piece of data, but it's not being used in the way that could be most efficient. So you've got 2 or 3 good pieces of information in here that I think could be put together to make a stronger argument, but the argument is really underdeveloped. It's random, and I think it tends to focus a little bit more on the value argument than the issue of fact that's going on here. All right, thank you.